Welcome, everyone. My name is Allison Bruin, and I'm the Director of Customer Success here at Think Reservations. I'm so excited to host today's customer panel where we'll have a chance to talk to some leaders in the independent lodging space about the day-to-day realities of running their businesses. At its core, independent lodging is about delivering memorable human experiences, and that hasn't changed. But the environment around it certainly has. Today, we're going to hear from operators who are adapting in real time and can share what's working, what's challenging, and what they're preparing for. Before we get started, let me make some introductions. On my left here, I'd like to welcome Travis Shellhorse, who heads up Verde Green Hotels and Residences, a family-owned boutique lodging brand with a rich history of breathing new life into historic inns. Committed to preserving the legacy of each property while infusing them with contemporary design, the brand has successfully transformed several East Coast landmarks, from New Hampshire all the way down to Key West, into immersive, design-forward accommodations. Before launching Verde Green with his partner, Ozzy, Travis spent more than 20 years in hospitality finance with organizations such as Disney, C&L Hotels and Resorts, Bank of America, and Highgate Hotels. Welcome, Travis. Yeah. In the center, let me introduce Alice Balkin. Alice is the general manager at York Harbor Inn and has spent her entire career in the hospitality industry. Known for the strong relationships she builds with guests and staff alike, Alice brings over 20 years of experience leading teams and creating memorable guest experiences. She holds a bachelor's degree in economics, which she credits for helping her maximize resources and operational efficiency. Outside of work, Alice is an avid gardener and enjoys starting seeds each year to share seedlings with her team members to plant in their gardens each summer. Welcome, Alice.
Thank you.
And finally, on the far end is Jeff Skidmore, the co-owner of Wolf Cove Inn, a 13-room lakeside retreat in Poland, Maine, known for romantic getaways, intimate weddings, wellness-focused experiences, and locally sourced dining. Jeff and his team have established the inn as a destination for guests seeking personalized service, natural beauty, and a peaceful escape on Trip Lake. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for joining me today here at the customer panel for ThinkGrowth. I'm really excited to dive into a dialogue with you all about what's happening in independent lodging. But before we get into it, I want to also bring our audience into the mix at home. We have a few chances for you to weigh in throughout the session today, and our live chat is also open, so feel free to jump in with any questions or thoughts that you have. And to kick things off, let's start with our first poll of the day. We'd love to hear from you. What challenges are top of mind for you? While these poll responses are coming in, and we'll share them live on the screen for everyone watching, let's keep things moving with the topic that all operators have strong feelings about: technology and efficiency. So this is a question I'd love to hear from all of you. Alice, I'm going to direct it to you first here. Do you feel that technology has simplified operations or just added another layer for you to manage?
I think it depends on the technology you choose. It's obviously important to make good decisions and really make sure that you're building out the product that you buy. But I think that it really does simplify things rather than be another layer to manage. I find that when you get the right product, it really helps leverage your time to do other things that are maybe more beneficial for your guests.
Yeah. So I think that's, for me, that's part of the key, right? It's like we are using technology as a tool so that we don't have to do the logistics.
Yes.
Any other perspectives to share on that, Travis or Jeff?
I mean, I would say I agree with Alice. It's technology can make your life so much easier, but too much of it can be overbearing and overwhelming, and then you're managing the technology and not the guest. So I like to sort of say this: the right technology, and sort of being really mindful in what you choose to use and make sure it's the right thing for you as you go forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with both of them. Technology for us is a part of our day-to-day reality. For us, we really lean heavy into our social media marketing. We have a big presence, so technology is at the disposal of our own fingertips, if you will, every day. And it's a big part of the guest experience, but also a big part of what draws business to our little remote inn.
Yeah. It's so much a part of our landscape. I think it also brings some challenges, in managing it effectively, right? So I'd love to hear, Travis, maybe you can start us off with this one. What if you had a magic wand that you could fix one tech pain point? What would it be?
I think one is tough. But I would say generally just managing through Google and all its variations. I feel like sometimes it becomes a cat and mouse game. I would throw Instagram in there too, especially with multiple properties. Just as these tech companies have grown and you just become a little cog in their wheel, sometimes it's hard to get that customer service. So I guess the theme is I would love more customer service from Google and Airbnb and all of those those third-party big enterprises that we're having to use in our day-to-day.
Yeah, so challenging as a smaller property to get the attention from the large, tech companies that sort of run those digital spaces. Yeah. Google is also always changing things, so trying to kind of keep up with that also. Any other thoughts? What's your one pain point you would fix?
I mean, Jeff? If I could have robots doing our endless laundry every day and just wave the magic wand and do that, I totally would.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say a lot of our technological pain points, and I almost mean that literally, is within the maintenance of the business, our appliances. For us, a small business, we can ill afford to drop a lot of money on very high-end commercial appliances. So sometimes we have to go the more frugal route when it comes to handling that stuff. And so, it's kind of where we are.
Yeah, and those technologies are evolving too. So trying to kind of keep up with that and make it work for your business. Mm-hmm. Super important. What do you think, Alice?
So we have a fair number of employees, and our team grows seasonally, obviously, being in Maine and, we're still seasonal business. So something that would be easier for us is there's a lot of moving parts with the employees as far as, punching in and out and taking care of their schedules and communicating to them about their schedules or getting messages out to a group of 130 plus people. And also making sure that they are receiving the messages, right? Like just because you send it out doesn't mean that they acknowledge it or get it, even though it's right on their phone, and they're always on their phone. So figuring that out would be a help. Yeah,
internal staff communication is always a challenge, especially seasonally, I think, because you have, in a lot of the smaller properties, you might have people who are with you a long time or really trusted. You have a small group of folks, but right. For a property that has, I think you shared with me, you have almost 140 employees. That's
in season. Yeah,
it's a big season. Group. So that's a lot of people to keep in the same loop about everything.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. How do you decide, Jeff? I'm going to direct this one to you first. How do you decide what's worth investing in?
I mean, we always refer to our business plan. Our business plan is always evolving. We update it every year, and we just pay attention to trends. What is the guest demanding? What would elevate our guest experience? Being that we are a remote getaway destination, creating experiences that bring people to the end, keep them happy, becoming that destination is basically the theme of where we seek out new projects and keeping them there and keeping them happy. And that's kind of the name of the game that we usually go with.
Yeah, investing in experiences, such an important part of independent lodging. Mm. What do you think, Travis? What are you?
Well, for us, we have 12 properties we're currently operating now. So, from a pure sort of business perspective, we have to sort of decide, are we going to invest in real estate or renovating a current property? Are we going to invest in more people? Or are we going to invest in the tech? So it's a little bit of a juggling act as to where to put our resources and our money. And there's sort of a circularity to it. When if we buy a couple more properties, we need more people. And then if we have people that want to grow and want more money as they grow, we need more properties. And then we need to balance that out with the right tech so that it all kind of works together.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of an ongoing
the juggling act, right? Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Alice?
We've been focused primarily on property improvements over the last few years, trying to upgrade our guest experience, like you say. We put in an outdoor jacuzzi hot tub that's year-round, in-ground. It's really nice for our guests. And, in the upcoming years, we're going to continue to build out more suites because we find that we have travelers that are bringing their families more than they used to, even to our destination, which used to be more of a couples kind of lodging type situation. And so based on what the customers tell you, right, your feedback, you can understand where you need to start directing your funds.
Yeah. So I love that you mentioned feedback, because I think it's a really important part of, the life cycle of independent lodging. We have to respond to what our guests are telling us, what our teams are telling us. Super, super important, and can help sort of guide those decisions. Great. This is a hot topic that we have sort of touched on a little bit, but some of those pain points. But I want to know, what is it that keeps you up at night? You wanna kick us off?
Me?
You probably have a long list of things.
What doesn't keep me up at night? I would say insurance costs. I mean, we and sort of the counter to that is storms and hurricanes and Mother Nature. But as a hotel owner, a hotelier with 12 properties and a lot of employees, that a business that's open 7 days a week, 365 days a year, there's pretty much going to be something that goes wrong, small or big, each day. So it's hard to sit there and worry too much, but the big ones just generally, I think that can threaten the business are just insurance costs. Those have just been hard to manage. And then also just labor and skilled labor, especially as you get to some of those, like the plumbing and some of the intricacies of these old properties. And just as the properties, like we have properties built in the 17 and 1800s, which I'm sure a lot of our audience does. And there's things that if you did decide to update them or change them, it's just going to cost way too much money. So it's just sort of managing that, making sure your property doesn't become obsolete and is well maintained, and can continue to grow and be around for another 100 or 200 years. So those are some of the things of many, but yeah.
Well, I can imagine also with renovations, especially in historic building, whenever you open up the walls, you never know what you're going to find. So that's challenging to plan for, and I can imagine that would be stressful. Yeah. What do you think, Alice?
I think I'd like to just co-sign everything you said. I think that was a really excellent answer, and I agree. Insurance is over the past few years has become very expensive, and the market is difficult, and those operational costs that you can't control really at all, can be challenging. So I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Co-signing as well.
And we've taken a lot of chances since we've taken over the business. We've invested a lot into expanding amenities, renovations to our owner's quarters suite, and turning it into an 850 square foot guest rentable room. Opening up a new bar. And Nicole and I don't have a background really per se in hospitality and building a bar and renovations, but we do have a belief in ourselves and taking chances. And just what keeps me up is, are these chances going to pay off? Are we going to get a return on this? I know we're pursuing partly our passions through this, but is this going to be profitable for the business?
That's so relatable. I'm sure everybody is thinking about that. Is it going to pay off? Are all my hard efforts and risks going to be rewarded? And definitely a head scratcher. I want to talk a little bit about, some of the tools that you use in your businesses. And I'm curious to know, when it comes to your tools, are you, technology tools, what works better for your business? Is it more of like a one-stop shop or integrations? Or do you like to find different technology tools that do the exact things that you, all the bells and whistles that you're looking for? Or are you more interested in a seamless one-stop shop ecosystem? What do you think, Alice?
For me, that really depends on what I'm looking to do. If you get too much of a one-stop shop, then you become very much tethered to that product or that suite. And if you have problems, it's hard to then swap out everything that you're doing, and change to something else. Then you have to go to an integrated model and start picking and choosing. But it can be very helpful to have everything in one place. But I find that we do a little of both. Mm-hmm. And that seems to work for us right now. But that doesn't mean that it won't change in the future.
Yeah. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, no, I agree with Alice. In times, it's nice to have a one-stop shop where everything is condensed into one system. But it's always, I think, good to just keep your eyes open and peeled for all the technology that's out there at your disposal, and whatever can contribute to honestly making your life easier. Mm-hmm. Because in this industry, our lives are 24/7, 365. So embracing technologies that can just help simplify things is, I think, what my wife and I truly consider almost daily.
Yeah. Is there a specific resource that you use to tell you or to learn about some of the other tools that are out there?
ChatGPT.
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah. What are you thinking, Travis?
I would just add that technology available is just overwhelming. Yeah. It's just an overwhelming amount, especially with all the recent AI stuff. I would say just kind of be deliberate and careful. Everyone's going to sell you the best thing since sliced bread, and they're going to tell you it's fully integrated. And I can't tell you in 20 plus years how many times when someone told me something was fully integrated, it wasn't. In fact, it created more work than it was if I just kept two separate systems. So just be mindful, use your business judgment, and try not to get too overwhelmed with all that's thrown at you. Don't be afraid to tell a salesperson no.
There's so many, you get so many emails all day long, and I don't know any of the, I've never heard of a lot of the things, so there's a lot to learn, a lot to parse through.
For sure. And you brought up AI, which is a perfect segue, because I think this is a really, obviously a relevant topic. It's out there all day, every day. We're hearing about AI. It's kind of the elephant in the room. So I want to get a pulse from the audience on this. You'll see another poll popping up here. So definitely let us know what you are thinking about AI. Is it hype or help? And I want to hear from you guys too. Are you embracing AI? Are you avoiding it? Somewhere in between? What's your current strategy with AI?
We're embracing it. Nicole and I, when we first took over the business, she was 6 months pregnant, and we were managing our rates by ourselves. But as soon as she had a child born at the peak of our fall foliage season, and it seemed like a lot of things fell through below the waistline, and managing our rates was a part of it. Since we've partnered with an organization to help manage our rates, and it's delivered really good positive results for us. But also just moving on to the other day-to-day, ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok. We use a little bit of everything. One of our social media posts that we did one time was it was when this viral sensation of Bigfoot and Yeti videos were on Instagram and TikTok. And so we did a video of Bigfoot visiting Wolf Cove Inn on social media. And so it literally looked like Bigfoot, but we generated this through VO. So we used VO as Google's marketing tool and generated this, 27-second marketing clip that turned out to be really popular for our guests. And
I saw it.
Yeah, there you go.
A viral moment.
Yeah.
But to this day, we have people coming back like, when are we going to see Bigfoot again? I'm like, maybe in the holidays.
Yeah,
Christmas Bigfoot.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That may be when Yeti visits.
There you go. That it does seem more Christmas.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. What about you, Travis? Are you embracing AI or avoiding it, or?
I think both of those are strong words. I would say Jeff's probably embraced it a little more than we have so far, but we definitely are using it for revenue management, or starting to. The computer's just going to be better than a human at that. But again, you have to work within parameters and make sure it's not going rogue on you. So we're slowly rolling that out. We also use it a little bit for copy. And we're sort of sprinkling it into our organization. You can't ignore it. So
Yeah, a more cautious adoption approach here. How about you, Alice?
I'm in the same boat. We're sort of sprinkling the AI into our operation slowly. I'm trying to figure out how I can best utilize it to help me in my forecasting and modeling for accounting and finance. But I find that our social media people like to use it a little bit for copy, but not to just have it spit out something and then you just push that into your email, because you got to stay authentic to your brand and your customers, and they know your voice. And if you don't sound like yourself, then you it's not genuine. And we are who we are. So we have to make sure that we're still coming across like that.
Yeah.
So it's a slower process for us. We're not quite where you are.
Mm-hmm.
You're not at Yeti.
No.
You're not a Yeti
No.
viral videos.
No, not yet, but I'm getting inspired.
Yep.
That's good. I want to hear about, AI. AI obviously is a hot topic right now, but I'd love to hear if there's another tech piece that has truly transformed your day to day. Can you think of another, sort of tech thing that's really made a difference in your business? Alice, you got something on your mind?
Yeah, it's a maintenance management software we use that really helps us communicate, because we have 7 buildings. They're mostly historic, and so there's a lot of moving parts and pieces in different systems, and a lot of space to manage and keep track of. And so with this program we use, we can sort through and see when we have problems. If we're having the same thing show up on our maintenance list, weekly, or maybe even 8 or 9 times a year, then we can address that and say, we need to fix this. We can't just keep calling somebody. So that has been a major help for us. We used to have a clipboard where we write everything down, back in the old school, and the maintenance guy would come check the clipboard to see what the problems were for the day. So
now you're able to, work more quickly on that because
and
of
then we can see the
technology.
progress, and they can update us, so we don't have to go track people down and find out if the thing is done. And it helps us communicate with our front desk so that they can communicate to the guest if it's a guest related issue in their room, and we can say, hey, we've taken care of that, thank you so much, and make sure that they're comfortable with their stay too.
Yeah, it sounds like that communication piece is really key for you at your Cove Inn.
Very much.
How about you, Jeff? Is there a tech piece that's transformed your day to day?
Yeah, social media. We started, when we took over this business, we started, I think, with a little less than 1,000 followers on our Instagram. We're now close to 30,000. We've embraced TikTok. So social media is the biggest one for us, that I think people come and stay at Wolf Cove Inn. They're usually familiar with kind of the antics that we project on our social media. But aside from social media, internal tools. We have an app where we can streamline communication among staff members, create separate groups where it's just housekeeping or it's just the kitchen staff, helps us calendar, but it's a really effective tool for a small business like ours. And beyond that, just messenger services with guests, Think Messenger. That really has been helpful in terms of just eliminating picking up the phone and having to have an awkward 10-second conversation, sometimes with someone, to just manage things as simple through text message.
I do love Think Messenger.
Yes, yeah.
The communication with the guests is really excellent, and they're constantly messaging us, which I really like, because you get immediate feedback or response, and you can, and there's a lot of people that don't like using the phone. They don't want to call you. So giving them another option is nice. And it's nice for the front desk to have a minute to pause, when they have to answer a question, to think about what's going on, and it doesn't interrupt them if they have a guest in front of them. So the Think Messenger has been really, really good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And a lot of our clients use Think Messenger to communicate with their guests. I think that's a great tool. How about you, Travis? Anything coming to mind for you?
I would just go back to basics, just sort of property management system, cloud-based software, that being sort of becoming a major piece of software within the hotel industry, allowed smaller independent hotel owners to kind of compete with the brands. And I was just chatting earlier how, as I was coming into this business from bigger hotel companies, how antiquated the older systems were, and how the cloud-based system has allowed us to actually centralize corporate headquarters and manage 12 properties, because everything's in the cloud, and Think has been tremendous for us in kind of growing and being able to do that. So.
Yeah, that's great. Can't overlook the basics, right? It's important for a reason. So we've talked a lot about technology, and we could probably, we're a tech I'm here as representing a tech company, so we could talk about technology all day. But I think there's a lot of other, important elements to the independent lodging business that I want to touch on. And one of those is growth, just business growth and strategy. So I have some questions along those lines that I want to pose to you folks here. Travis, I'll start with you this time. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for growth in your businesses?
It's a tough one. It's something, as we talked about, where we're going to put our investment in. It kind of is related to that, right? So it's really sort of broken out into more real estate, or growing the real estate we currently have, hiring more and great people, or investing in tech. I think it's a little bit of all of the above. I think the industry, I think the more the bigger brands and bigger hotel companies grow and dilute themselves with, an unauthentic, what I would say, brand that tries to sort of match what we as independent hoteliers are able to provide, that there's an opportunity. There's so many of these properties, and some of them are kind of going by the wayside and becoming residential properties. So I think there's a ton of these properties across the US that I would love to see revitalized and become part of that lodging experience, because it's such a unique experience that people love, versus just having to stay at the big box brands, even the ones that try to sort of say they're authentic and independent, and you just can't compete with someone making your breakfast and an innkeeper that's right there with you, and being a concierge to your stay and the locality of what you're doing. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for your business, and you're more focused on growing your brand and helping to extend that to some of these other smaller properties. I'd love to hear, Alice, for your business, what do you see as opportunities for growth within the singular property?
So things that we're looking at are maybe more partnerships with people, even concierges or guides, and also properties that are further north of us, because we're very southern Maine, and so there's a lot of opportunity for drive packages or destinations where we could say, come stop at us, then go see Poland, Maine, and the Wolf Cove Inn and the Yeti at Christmas, and we can talk about, setting them up for success to get to their next destination. We get a lot of guests that travel through from York and then stop maybe in Portland and head on to Bar Harbor, and then we'll see them again on their way back. So I think that that's an opportunity for us to try and explore a little more.
Yeah, partnering with some local other properties and businesses to help create those packages. What about you, Jeff?
Yeah, so as Alice knows, Maine is a very seasonal state. We are both open year-round, and that can be tough when you get into the colder months and in the springtime. So each year we're looking at new experiences to add, or new packages. And this year we are exploring the idea of adding a new stream of revenue of business retreats, corporate retreats. So being that we're 2 hours from Boston, 45 minutes from Portland, having a business retreat destination is a good way of not only just bringing in additional guests, but helps mitigate especially those weekday bookings, which can be very empty, in the colder months in Maine. So that's sort of the next step of what we're exploring.
Yeah, I imagine that's a great way to sort of collaborate with your local community, some of the businesses in the area that might have travelers coming in. Yeah. This is actually a great segue into another question that I wanted to ask about, which is, in general, how are you thinking about collaborating locally? Is it more along the lines of those business travelers, or are there other, innovative ways that you're having that your community supports your business, and that you can also help bolster other businesses in your community? Anything coming to mind there?
Yeah, I mean, we have a very strong, we're in a really remote area, but we have a very strong relationship with supporting other businesses. A part of what our ethos, our brand, is being local sourcing with our food. So we have direct relationships with farmers, but local purveyors. The guy who bakes our English muffins is a stand-up comedian in his side hustle, and he lives just right around the corner from us. But Really, Maine is such a small town.
Yeah.
Everyone knows everyone. So really connecting on a local level with a lot of the local businesses is hugely important to us, between agriculture and just purveyors, creators, and that's kind of where we, and having also events. So we've also partnered with like the folks who do our pottery, Campfire Pottery, who are very well-known potters in the world. They've been on like Martha Stewart magazine, I think, and have been featured in The Lost Kitchen on the Magnolia Network. But we've done some pottery making classes, several with them actually, and brings in a whole different type of guest that otherwise may have not found Wolf Cove Inn on the map. But we do them the pottery making classes on site at Wolf Cove Inn.
Yeah. I'm curious to know how that resonates with you, Travis, since your business model is a little different. Do you seek out those types of collaborations for each of your individual properties, or are there ways in which your whole portfolio is its own ecosystem?
Absolutely. I would say it's pretty much individually to the specific property, although we have some clusters, so upstate New York and Savannah. But we partner with tour operators, with wineries, with yoga instructors, local purveyors. It's really sort of dependent on the locale and the community. But what I've found is our innkeepers, they're sort of becoming an ambassador for the hotel and the community. And even though they're not technically an owner, most guests will refer to them as owners based on the experience in their stay. And they act as a concierge for the guests. And that's part of the experience. And just kind of tying the guest into all the local cool restaurants and things to do. That's part of the experience and what our guests love, how much our innkeepers are tied to the community and know where to send them, because that's that overall experience, and that sort of high, that great review is really going to come not just from the property itself, but just the different things they did while they were there.
Yeah, yep. Great. Alice, anything to add there?
I mean,
I saw you nodding along to Jeff.
These are very good, complete answers. Our pub has been a community hub for a number of years, and the locals very much like it. And we do some Christmas drives for toys for local families, and we adopt a few families, and we have repeat hotel guests who don't even live in the area that will start off with a big donation at the beginning of the season, which gets us going. We do things like you're talking about, yoga or different classes that we can bring people in. We've partnered with Vanessa, the main concierge, to do a party at our seasonal property, which was really fun. Just being there for the community and being open year round, I think helps us, generate that partnership with our guests.
Yeah, and being in such a seasonal area too, having your pub open year round. And becoming sort of a staple of the community, I'm sure is
it's nice.
Yeah, wonderful. I'd love to hear about maybe some of the new business models you might be trying on for size or experimenting with, anything along the lines of different strategies you haven't tried before, like promoting longer stays or loyalty, memberships, experiences, things like that are new. Is there anything, Jeff, that you're thinking?
Well, when we took over the business, our inn was very much geared as a romantic getaway, which it still is, but weddings being a big segment of that business, which is a huge opportunity for income for a business like ours on a lake. And most of the weddings were elopement size, small scale, very micro wedding oriented. And then we have been exploring larger scale. And not that large, like 50 people or most, still keep it intimate, but you rent out the whole inn rather than partially renting out the inn. Sometimes when you do partial rent outs, that can add a lot of pressure to the innkeeper in terms of providing a balanced experience for everyone there. Sometimes it can create issues, but renting out the whole inn, it's added a tremendous value to our bottom line. I think this year we've hit 45 weddings and grossed over 400,000. And I think sales for our weddings next year, we're already at 19 and we're at 307,000 I last checked. But the number of 2025 is 2.5 what 2023 was. So
incredible.
so we're seeing a lot of growth. So just continuing to kind of massage that, because at the end of the day, there will always be a demand for weddings. And so tapping into that market is incredibly beneficial if you have the ability and have the right space for it.
Yeah, great. Travis, anything come to mind for you in terms of like new models you're trying out?
Nothing specifically. Someone will have an idea and we'll throw it in the ring and we'll choose a property to test it at. I'm a financier first before a hotelier, and for me, I'm always the one that has to shoot some of these ideas down, unfortunately, because
Be the voice of reason.
I mean, some of these cool things, right? It's just a matter of, okay, but is it going to flow to the bottom line, and how much labor and operational inefficiency is it going to cause? So we generally are very deliberate now, and we sort of test things out at one property and do a little beta test before we roll things out. But we're always looking.
Yeah.
But we're sort of careful and deliberate in what we roll out and what new business line we're going in, because you never know if you're going to open up a can of worms or not.
Yeah, that's totally true. What about you, Alice? Anything come to mind for you?
I think I'm more where you are with that. We have, at this point, the Inn's been 45 years with the Dominguez family, and so we have a pretty well-established wedding corporate program, group rooms. One of the things we did start a few years ago was building buyouts, because we have 7 different buildings. So if you come with your family or you want a smaller retreat for executives, taking over 1 inn or maybe 2 that are next to each other gives them a lot of space, because these beautiful historic buildings with living rooms. So it's like an alternative meeting space. And so that has been something that we've done. But I'm a little more cautious too, because I come from an economics background. So I'm always like, well, how much is this going to cost, and what will we get for return, and can we measure it?
Yeah, so important. You mentioned measuring it, and I know that this is one of the another poll that we have for our audience. So I'll take this moment to introduce that poll, which is just want to hear from our audience at home. How are you measuring your success and growth? So definitely, encourage you to communicate in the chat about that as well, and put in your answers to that poll. I want to also hear from our panel here. There's a lot of rising costs right now in hospitality and everywhere. What are the top 3 things that you are doing that are helping you stay profitable as costs rise? Anything come to mind for you, Travis?
The top 3.
Or any that come to mind.
It's a tough question.
You're a finance guy. You've got to
tough.
have some insight for us.
I think the biggest thing as we look at each of our properties is understanding what are the correct hours of operation and what's the correct labor model. What are the services we're going to offer based on the seasonality, based on the customer demand, based on the location, based on if it's inbound flights or drive to, because it's really labor that's going to cost you the most. Especially it's really highlighted when you're dealing with smaller properties. So we have to make sure we have the right people, the right hours of operation, and that we understand the flow of our guests coming in and out of the property, and that we are touching the guest at breakfast in the morning. If we miss them at night on a late check-in, if we give them a code to check in and they're missing that experience, they're getting that experience first thing in the morning. So it's really the operating model by hotel that makes sense.
Yeah. And Alice, I'm sure this rings true to you as well. You have a property in a seasonal location. So how do you manage that seasonality in terms of cost and labor?
Well, you have to make sure you keep your employees happy, and also like the good ones sticking around, and so we just really try to promote off-season events to keep our staff busy. We do a lot of wine tastings or concerts or other things in our ballroom, and try to do things in our dining room, so that dinner specials and things like that, to bring in our local community, so that when we have a full staff in our kitchen in the off season, that we can keep them busy and employed, and that it makes sense for us, because payroll is by far the biggest thing to deal with, for sure. Control that.
Certainly.
I mean, they touched on the pain points, obviously, of staff, but with us, you need to have a really good staff to deliver the product that we're dreaming of, right? And but yeah, weddings, maintaining consistent wedding volume is huge for us, but generating, as we're touching on, as Maine being a seasonal state, and us being open, but generating experiences and unique experiences too, not just any type of experience, but generating unique experiences that separate you from other competition, that can draw that demand of why the guest should come to you,
Yeah.
and whether it's an on-site sauna that has a view of the lake, or elevated romantic dinners in a rustic 130-year-old boathouse right on the water. And just offering kayaks and canoes and stuff like that. Just keeping people, creating almost like a resort type of feel at an inn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So those experiences really driving what helps, combat, and entice people to still come even as everything's getting more expensive. That's great.
Allison, I would add, because you were talking about how to control costs, something that we've done over the years is work with a broker for electricity and other utilities. So we get locked into some contracts that had some really good pricing, so that we weren't subject to the same volatility along with the electric market. So that was helpful, especially with the number of properties that we have. Those kind of contracts, when you find them, and can be beneficial, because then you have very stable utility costs, and you can focus on other areas to manage or try to cut back.
Yeah, it's so foundational and crucial, even though it's not maybe the most, shiny part of running the business, but it can really make or break. Yeah. Excellent point. Thank you. I want to talk a little bit also about sustainability. How are you thinking about sustainability in your business, and what is driving that conversation? Is it, your own passion? Is it guest demand? Is it cost related? And what are you implementing in your business related to sustainability? Curious to see, Alice, are there ways that you're thinking about sustainability in your business, and what's driving that?
Yeah, we've always really thought about that. Back when we could start composting for our kitchen, we did, because there's a lot of food and food waste and volume, and we had our previous chef kept bees, so we could have our honey, and we switched to, like a lot of hotels, amenities that are larger, not all the little bottles, the plastics, the soaps. We really try to cut down on plastic and waste we generate, because we do have a responsibility to the community, the environment, to try to not be just a user of the resources, and then also for people's health, like things like the coffee pods without plastic. Microplastics are a big thing, so making sure that we have those in the rooms that are healthy and good for our guests, and people appreciate that. I think that they recognize that we're trying to be sustainable and green where we can, without sacrificing quality or our guest comfort.
Yeah. I'm curious, when it comes to sustainability, there's often a mentality that it is expensive to be sustainable. Do you find that to be true? Do you find it costs you more? Do you find that it cuts your costs as a business to, like with the amenities in the rooms, are you spending more on amenities, less? How's that?
I think that at this point, I'm not sure, because it's been so long since we changed over, but I think that we were spending less, and there was less space needed for the storage, and less restocking and less reordering. So I think that you're getting less shipments of things, which is less carbon. So I think that it did save us money, and still does, truthfully.
Yeah. It's interesting, because I think that narrative often is opposite when it comes to sustainability. Jeff, do you any of this ringing true to you? Is there any ways that you are thinking about sustainability at Wolf Cove Inn?
Yeah, and mostly less so in our day-to-day operations. We do put our best foot forward in trying to maintain sustainable practices when it comes to like laundry, utilization of water, and all our resources. But I'd say the biggest one would be the businesses or the farms and the food producers that we partner with, that practice in sustainable methods, whether we source out meat products from farms that do regenerative farming practices, which, the agriculture community in Maine is very good, very progressive, and we're members of the Maine Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association called MOFGA, and just partnering. It's mostly indoor partnerships, I'd say, where we practice sustainability is with the businesses around us.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to add to that, Travis?
Absolutely. Verde Green was sort of born out of that idea of sustainability. It started as a home goods store, buying old furniture and upcycling it. Eventually, Verde Green became our hotel brand, and the whole idea behind it is that we're upcycling a lot of the furniture within the hotels, reusing old stuff as much as we can, just sort of freshening up a hotel and keeping it in the cycle of beautiful real estate that people can enjoy for years to come. I think of it more as an overall holistic sort of approach to our brand and these properties.
Yeah, that's great. I think it really seems like it's at the core of your brand, which is awesome. So I want to move into our final area of discussion here, which is one I'm sure you are all very passionate about: guest experience and expectations. In this digital age, guests are now expecting instant answers, flexible options, personalization. How are you delivering on that, Jeff?
Yeah, I'd say we were just delivering that experience by doing things that are unique and different. Mm-hmm. Whether, and I tapped into this a little earlier, we have different type of dining options. Whether you want to do a private on-the-water dining experience right on the water on Trip Pond and overlook a nice, beautiful sunset, or you want to eat in our sun porch. We have casual dining options versus more elevated multi-course dining options. So different tiers, but a sauna that has a view of the lake too, an ice bath that we're the only property in the state of Maine that has one of these ice baths, and a bar that was very locally partnered with, that we developed, where it has all elements that are local to Maine, 200 to 300-year-old reclaimed wood that was from a farm in Maine as the base of our bar, and telling these stories with these guests day to day on about these experiences and these curated elements, and it changes their perception, I think, mm-hmm. compared to where we were a few years ago when we first took over these new little quirks that just define you differently.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're really focusing on that personalization and that unique experience, which is awesome. Alice, would you talk a little bit about how the immediacy is, the need for immediate answers is impacting your business at York Harbor Inn?
Yeah, our guests definitely expect, immediate communication, and so Think Messenger, again, I will say is a big help to that. And I have to say that the employees at the inn are really wonderful, and I want to make sure that I get that out there, because they do a really great job at talking to everybody they come across when a guest is walking through. I get consistent feedback about how wonderful our staff is and how communicative they are, and how they really get to know our guests. And I think that as far as the guest expectation part, that really helps them feel like they're comfortable coming to us or telling us things. And we try really hard when we make reservations to find out why people are coming, so that we can make sure that those notes go into their permanent part of their reservation, so that we know if they come every November, on this random weekend, that it's their anniversary, mm-hmm. So you have to be a little curious. But I think that, we're there 24 hours a day. So being an immediate response to our guests is not a problem. Mm-hmm. We always have somebody at our front desk. And so there's always somebody that can answer a question. And if not, we'll get a phone call.
Yeah.
And then somebody like you or I are answering it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Really common for innkeepers, I think, and hoteliers with properties of all different sizes. How does that manifest for your businesses, Travis? Do you have someone there 24/7 being able to provide those immediate answers, or what are you using to deliver that experience?
I mean, not necessarily 24/7. I would say, we've learned that we can't be everything to everyone, mm-hmm. That you're not going to please everyone, that as we come in and update properties, people are going to be disappointed with the change, but you're going to have a whole new influx of customers that love and appreciate the change. But for us, it just varies by property. I would say that coming from a long time hotelier background, that Airbnb, I think, has sort of lowered the expectations to some regard, and that when people come to these small inns that are sort of similar to an Airbnb, but they're sort of wowed. And I think that it really comes down to, as you were saying earlier about that, giving them something unique. I think if people are coming and paying $300, $400, even $500 a night, that you need to have something that's going to wow them that they haven't seen before. And it could be the opposite of the newest tech. Like at one of our properties, we just have a DVD collection, and that's become like a thing that people highlight. And at other properties, we don't even have a TV. And at first, some people might complain, but again, it can't be everything to everyone. And there's a lot of people that appreciate it. And then you don't get the middle of the night call about TV being broken. So it's a little bit of a balancing act between properties, but I think you just have to be authentic in what you are providing and not jump on the next gimmicky trend, because guests will see right through that. And to come up with something unique and cool that just wows them. And sometimes it's just one thing, and the rate they pay is all of a sudden worth it,
That's great advice. Like, I think it's a trap you can really easily fall into, trying to, we're in the business of making people happy, right? And authenticity is a really important part of that. You can't be everything to everyone, as you said. Really, really great point. I think one thing I've noticed is, especially in independent lodging as compared to, the large big box lodging, you see a lot of this trend towards a contactless experience. And I'm curious to know, how is that impacting your business? Are you trying to sort of bridge the gap or have some sort of hybrid experience, or how are you balancing this like trend toward a contactless experience with that high touch personal experience? Are there any things that you can take from that without negatively impacting that unique brand?
I could jump in here and just piggyback off my previous answer. I would say that these independent inns are providing something unique. I think that allows us to not necessarily have a front desk that's open 24 hours. So we've been able to sort of provide this sort of hybrid hotel Airbnb model, and we open to 5 o'clock at our Key West property all the way up to 24 hours at a couple of our properties. It just depends case by case, but having that option for people to check in after hours and not have someone there, just so we don't have to have someone manning the desk all the time. I think that's where Airbnb sort of opened up those doors. And then the big brand sort of going to contactless, I think it's helped, but I think we still have to embrace the uniqueness of our properties and that human touch and the concierge aspect of these inns. And that even if we're missing the guest at that check-in, that we're going to see them at breakfast, we're going to provide that first class service, and then we're going to wow them there. So I think it's a little bit of a hybrid where we use it where it makes sense, but still, like, we feel like someone needs to see someone at the property and have an interaction, because it's such a small, unique property that if it was just entirely contactless, then you might as well just go check into an Airbnb with no host, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think the contactless is nice to have for after hours and it provides that a little bit of more added balance for us, the innkeepers, where we can go home, be with our families, take a breath. But I'm a firm believer on having a very personalized experience for when that guest first walks through those doors. Greeting them, saying hi, doing your homework on who they are, where they came from, what they're celebrating in advance, so you know what you're talking to, who you're talking to, and taking them on a little guided tour. My staff makes fun of me and calls me Chatty Chad because I can't stop talking when I start talking to guests. And sometimes I'll just tour and I'll pay attention to read the vibe of them, and but sometimes I'll be talking with these guests. I'm checking in for 20 to 30 minutes, showing them all about the property, talking stories about the property. And the goal is to just walk them to their room, bring them their luggage to their room, and leave them a really positive warmth and a smile on their face when you take them to that room. Because once you've started on that really high note, make sure everything in between is good, but that first impression is so important, that personalized service. And credit to Nicole too, my wife, who also does personalized handwritten letters for each guest who comes through. That takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
A lot of time.
A lot.
Yeah.
And, but the amount of repeats that is generated for us and the people who've come to us where that genuinely touched them went a long way. And if you could just carve out that little extra effort, that could be so beneficial for your business.
Yeah, that's such a nice little touch, you know, and you know, we talked a little bit about, you know, wanting to create memorable experiences, and that's such a great way to, you know, people aren't going to forget that they got a nice handwritten letter. It's awesome.
No, that's really special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Alice?
You know, so we have not much in the way of contactless operations. You know, we do Airbnb reservations, you know, so we don't talk to those guests till they arrive. You don't get a lot of information, but we do staff our front desk 24 hours a day so that if people show up very late at night or they have problems, they have a first line person to go to or call on the phone. And I like that because I think that being a boutique property and, you know, independent, family owned, that our goal is really to make those genuine connections with our guests. Like you said, you know, we have a lot of repeat guests and we know a lot about them. And the only way you get to know that is by talking to them, you know, and being with them, showing them around. I love showing people around, you know, it's like, look at all the neat stuff we do here and how beautiful is this space. And, you know, I feel lucky to work in such a beautiful area. So it's always a pleasure to me to get to spend a little extra time talking to people in the morning at breakfast or, you know, when they check in or touring people if they want to see something and we have it available. I love doing that. You know, I think that that's not at all contactless. It is the absolute opposite.
Yeah. And I would say just like the DVDs are a novelty, guests love actual keys that they can put on the door because they don't get those anymore. Yeah. So that part of it's pretty cool.
It's so funny you're talking about the DVD. We just literally purchased a VHS TV, and we're adding like a VHS library for the holiday season to the end.
I think some of those little touches really go a long way.
Yeah.
The old school media, the physical key, you really can't replace some of those things. Tours, it's great. Awesome. What do you find travelers are asking you now that they weren't 5-6 years ago, you know, pre-COVID? Alice, this is maybe a great question for you, having been at York Harbor Inn for so long.
Yeah, you know, that is a really excellent question. We are getting longer stays post-COVID, so that has been interesting to us, which is always, you know, great for operational costs as well, you know, and it's nice that people can spend more time experiencing your property. So we get more requests for other dining options than we have 2 restaurants, 3 in season. And then we get requests for maybe day trip advice, you know, things like that, more concierge services, which we're very happy to provide. We had a concierge for a number of years and have not really since post-COVID, but have been able to maybe talk about technology, leverage some of, you know, the Google and the AI and all of the things to help curate experiences and provide more for our guests when they're asking for more information. But as far as amenities, I haven't noticed a real change in what people are asking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you noticed anything since starting Verde Green? Any big shifts in what people are asking for?
I would say sort of the biggest shift that we've had to navigate is dietary restrictions. There's so many of them that come in, and now people are almost deciding whether to book, whether you can meet their dietary restrictions on your breakfast. So that's been a big thing we've had to work through and manage, and we've tried to accommodate as much as we can, but it's become pretty big over the last few years, I think.
Yeah, and part of that guest experience, right? They want to know that they're going to be able to be comfortable and safe, and How about you, Jeff?
I mean, well, we've only been in or owned the business for 2.5 years, so but I'd say there is a demand for longer stays, and we had this reservation taken in January for a summer vacation for a group of women. It was about 3 or 4 people who had 4 different rooms for a month. You're getting that reservation in January, you're jumping for joy in Maine, because that's a lot of deposit money right to you, right up front.
Mm-hmm.
That was, I think, close to a $30,000 reservation.
Wow.
A month later, they called and said, because there's not much dining in your area and you guys only serve pizza and we don't have a kitchen, I think we're going to cancel. And that was just a punch to the gut, that cancellation, absorbing those cancellation fees. And so that, you can't make a change off of one example, as we all know, but that put the wheels in motion for renovating our owner's quarter suite. Our owner's quarter suite, 850 square feet, and has its own fully loaded kitchen. Renovated that as a means for the longer stay, person who's staying here for a longer stay, who wants a one-stop shop for cooking and kitchen and all that stuff, where they don't have to go 25 minutes out. But we also changed our approach since then to our food offerings, offering a lot more than just pizza when we first started out. So if people are staying multiple days, they can dabble in multiple options. But so paying attention kind of to what the guest is, that guest expectation is a little bit, but also adding amenities that aren't necessarily, or rooms that aren't necessarily taking value from other rooms.
Have you found that guest expectations have changed above and beyond what you're able to absorb?
I would say, I feel like this past summer was the best talent that we've had. And it was the most exhausting, I think, for our team collectively. But because I think the expectation had risen so high as far as expectations for the guests and these new experiences that we're providing. But so I'd say, yes, the expectations definitely have risen. But I feel like it is, our staff has felt it. But we've also operated in a place where we're constantly understaffed too. Maine is a tough state in that regard. If you're always staying, it seems like every business feels that. But I feel like we did a good job at keeping up with it this year.
Yeah, that's great.
All things considered.
Yeah. Have you found any changes to that expectation, and how are you managing it with your teams?
I think, other than the dietary restrictions, I think that's been the most difficult one. I think it really generational, case by case. People have been to the party before, people that haven't. I think it's just a general sort of being trained in service and hospitality, because every guest is different and unique in what they expect, and sort of finding that one thing that's going to make their stay wonderful. And you could have 20 people in house, and each of them is going to remember something different that sort of made that stay exceptional. I think, going back to your earlier question, there is this sort of immediate, people are used to getting immediate answers. So like all of our websites have a little Wix chat box, and people will just say like, how much is your room? And just being able to respond to those things, and give people immediate answers to things that are non-chat GPT has been hard, and we haven't moved toward sort of having auto responses to those types of things, and that's just something we would have to weigh if people really like expect you to say something, even if it's inauthentic and automated. But yeah, it's the world's changing. Everyone gets that immediate gratification in terms of response time to DMing or saying something. I will say though that we are surprised still at how many guests love to pick up the phone and call to make their reservation, like just talking to someone on the other line. And I think a lot of times that closes the deal for certain people if you're going to pick up the phone and talk to them. And the front desk people or the innkeeper or whoever's picking that phone up is essentially a salesperson.
Yes.
And that usually ends up in a reservation versus some of the like middle of the night Wix chats.
Yes.
Somebody daydreaming about their next vacation.
Yes.
I might be guilty of that in the middle of the night myself.
I think we all are a little guilty of the middle of the night daydreaming, right? Vacation planning. I'm curious to hear from you how you feel the expectations have changed. Like, is it more pre-arrival, during stay, post-departure? Are there any patterns you've noticed with the shift in expectations?
I think we have a little more, just going to start off.
Go for it.
A little more pre-arrival communication than we used to. I always thought that was pretty good, but I do see that people are reaching out more, especially with our Think Messenger, because we send out texts ahead of time to let them know about their stay, and then they're prompted to maybe ask more questions that they hadn't thought about at the time of booking, whether they did it online or through our reservationist, who is right, as we say, live, local, and at our front desk. They can see the Hartley Mason Reserve in York Harbor, if they step out the front door. They're not calling somebody somewhere in the middle of the country or anywhere else. So, once a guest gets that first communication in advance from us, then they really start to communicate with us. So I think we have more pre-arrival things, which is nice because you can then curate their stay a little better.
Mm-hmm. It helps you actually deliver that experience.
Right, they're telling you what they want or what they're looking for, and you know that ahead of time, so that if they mention something, you can also put that note in their reservation, because maybe they didn't tell you it was their anniversary, or that they're bringing a pet, and in their, you need to know those things.
Yeah, absolutely. This last question here is one that I think we have touched on a little bit, but I would love to hear just a little bit of your philosophy, your approach on how you are keeping the human touch as part of your guest experience as everything is shifting digital. Travis, any thoughts on that?
I would just sort of reiterate some of the stuff we've talked about, in that, the uniqueness of these small inns and bed and breakfasts under 30 rooms, they sort of differentiate themselves from the big brands in that they're smaller and more personal, and they are providing something that Airbnbs don't necessarily provide in some of the remote areas that you might not even have big brands or inns to choose from. I think part of that experience is really that innkeeper or the owner just being that concierge and providing that experience and understanding where they want help and where they don't, and not sort of being overbearing. But that's what I find people's reviews, or where the reviews come out, where you see them shine and where you see the experience sort of take it to the next level, is it really comes down to the person that they're interacting with, and they're naming names and just saying, I can't believe how great they were, the staff was great. That's the part that's how you differentiate yourself from Airbnb. And at the bigger hotels, you're going to get a front desk agent. You're not going to get someone that owns or has passion or just loves the hotel and really wants to make that guest experience great, as much as sort of a front desk agent at a Marriott. And that's just going to come through every time if you have the right people working for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Anything else you want to add to that, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, Travis nailed it. We, with our staff, we incentivize them. If you get your name dropped in a review, we're going to Venmo you $10. So we give them that extra incentivization. But hiring the right talent, it's hard. But when you do, it just pays off tremendously for your business. And I think for us, being that we are 13 guest rooms, we're a much smaller establishment. I'd say just Nicole and I being present, having a presence, having that interaction with the guests as frequently as we can, and just being involved and checking in on them. Because like Travis was talking about, the reason why most people will go to a review is because of the connection they made with the people that were there.
Yeah,
absolutely. I completely agree with both of you. I think that the employees and the connection they make with your guests is really the key. My philosophy, and the thing that I talk about at our annual employee meeting that we have to kick off our season, as we get going, is that everyone who works for the inn is a concierge. It doesn't matter what department you're in, front of the house, back of the house, housekeeping, maintenance, admin, staff, sales. Everybody has an opportunity and is always on our campus. So if you see a guest, please say hello. If they ask you a question, or you see that they're struggling or they have something, share a little bit of you with them. Obviously read your guests, like you said, maybe, to make sure that they're up for that. But the most consistent feedback I get is how engaged our staff is, how much they seem to really enjoy their job, and that they're happy to share what a beautiful place that we have with our guests. And that's just crucial.
Yeah.
That really helps.
Absolutely. And I think a great note to end our panel on, hospitality always, especially in this independent space, driven by the people.
Yeah.
Which I think is really, really an important thing to emphasize. and a great note to end our panel on. So, and with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up our session today. I want to thank you all for being here, Travis, Alice, and Jeff, and for sharing your insights and talking to us a little bit about what's going on with your businesses. And I want to thank everybody at home for joining us as well. I know the live chat is still going, so if we haven't gotten to your question yet, we will answer it after the session. But we hope that you've gained some insight, some inspiration, and maybe just related to this conversation in some way. Thanks so much for being with us here at ThinkGrowth.